Mentioned yesterday that this mimer is a mimer that stands out amongst many mimarim, amongst all the mimarim, the Alter Rebbe, in the sense that the custom is that young men, when they start learning mimarim, they usually start with this mimer. And let's show the reason why. I think I told you yesterday, one of the reasons are perhaps that when children start learning Torah, they also start with Vayikra. Even though today all the children start with Bereshis, but even before they start Bereshis, they usually study with them something from Chumash Vayikra.
Why is that?
Why is that? It's another question. And in the story with the Alter Rebbe, how when the Alter Rebbe was bringing the Tzemach Tzedek into Cheder to start learning, how he started to teach him from Vayikra, and the Tzemach Tzedek asked him why the Aleph is a small Aleph, and a lot of discussion about that. Why we start with Vayikra? The reason that's given is because children are pure, and therefore we start learning about Karbanis, which are also pure. That's the reason. Obviously, it begs for more commentary, but that's what it says. So it could be that being that studying Torah, you start with Vayikra, so too when you start with Maimorim, you also start with Vayikra. But I want to add another suggestion of maybe, I don't think I saw this anywhere, but it appears, and I think many people think along these lines, that besides this being a mimer like any other mimer, the mimer also defines what is Chabad all about. In other words, the Alter Rebbe's unique path of Chassidus is, in a sense, brought out in this mimer. And we know that the Maimorim that were chosen by the Tzemach Tzedek. He said that he had sat down with 2,000 Maimorim, and he had to choose from 2,000 Maimorim which ones to put into this sefer. Thank you. Okay. So we started off yesterday, or we could say we ended off yesterday on page 31. No, 33, where the Alter Rebbe concludes and says after everything that we learned that there is two kinds of avodah. First of all, we learned that there's two kinds of Yisusa de La'ela, an awakening from above, an arousal from above. One is that the awakening from above comes as a result of my Yisusa de Latata. I did my avodah, and as a result of that, I draw down a light from Hashem. There's another Yisusa de La'ela that comes before my avodah. That's actually what enables me to do my avodah. Maybe we'll start with the first paragraph on page 33. We'll back up a little bit. Hanafkusa, what is the difference? If the Aveda is at first, it's initiated by us down here, Isrusa de Latata, and that brings Isrusa de Leila, or Isrusa de Latata, Hanim Sharak Mitzad Isrusa de Leila. What is the difference? Shekashayesh Isrusa de Latata Mamish. If the Isrusa de Latata means I did my Aveda, I did my work. I worked hard in order to generate these feelings. And what was the work? Yigias Nefesh, where a person toiled and really labored deeply with his soul to learn, to understand, and that whatever he learned and understand should affect the heart. So basically, there's a few steps in the Avodah. Number one, to learn about Hashem and understand it by meditating, which is not easy, to concentrate and learn and understand these deep lofty subjects. And then the second thing is to see to it that what I understand should penetrate the heart. This change that takes place in my heart is something which will be permanent. Why? Because what I'm going to feel, what I'm going to experience, the Yisusa Leila comes as a result of my work. So then that light could shine in my soul in a deep way. It could be absorbed deeply, internally. Because I prepared myself for it. And then once that Isrusa Leila that comes into me is internalized and it's absorbed, now this gives me the strength that there should be another source of Latata, which means I daven more and I learn more and I move forward from level to level. Hashem came, but the other scenario, I didn't work, I didn't do any kind of avodah of refining my mind, refining my heart. But something happened which is totally and completely from above. Hashem shined his light into me. I did not prepare my heart. In such a case, that excitement that I have and that high that I feel will eventually just fade away. It won't be permanent. Why? Because the only reason why I'm feeling this is because there's a light shining from above. When that light from above that's shining, which doesn't shine all the time, it must be a special reason. Either it's a Shabbos, or it's a Yontif, or it's a 10 days of Tshuva, and there's much more things going on up there that we're not aware of that could be reasons why there's a special occasion in Shemayim, and as a result of that, the light is shining. Just to give an example, yes?
Very practical question. It may be too off track, but so let's say we sit down and say, well, now we're going to contemplate. Then, like I know for me, it's like do it for 15 seconds. I'll say, okay, I don't know if this is going to work, and like, whatever, 30 seconds. Is there like a practical idea of like sit down for a minute, 10 minutes, 30, start?
There is, but it's really very different for everybody. And maybe after we finish the Maimon, if you bring that up, we'll go into it a little bit. Okay? Just to give an example, good morning. There's a famous story with the Baal Shem Tov. Everybody knows the end of the story, but not everybody's familiar with the details of the beginning of the story. That is, the Baal Shem Tov said that he was in the chamber of Mashiach. And he asked Mashiach, Emasai Osimar, when are you coming? And Mashiach answered him, when your well springs will be spread. I heard this years and years and years, and this is the story we knew. And one day, for whatever reason, I decided to look it up in the source. Where's the source? The Sefer of the Baal Shem Tov is called Keser Shem Tov. The Frierdiker Rebbe once said that every Hasidic home should have these three svarim: Keser Shem Tov, which is from the Baal Shem Tov. The second one is Magid Dvar Liyakov, which is from the Mazrucha Magid. And the third one is Tanya. These svarim are a must to be in every Hasidic home. So this is Keser Shem Tov, and I open up to the first page, and the first page is a letter that the Baal Shem Tov is writing in his own words to his brother-in-law. His name is Reb Gershon Kitover. And he describes how it happened, that it was Rosh Hashanah, the year Tufshin Zayin, which I guess is 1747. Yeah, and he writes that that night, Rosh Hashanah, he went up and had an experience, went up into Shemayim. And then he said, he writes to his brother-in-law, that for some reason or other, there was a simcha going on that's beyond description. And I saw my Rebbe. His Rebbe was a Cheshuleni, and everybody was asking the Baal Shem Tov to go higher and higher. He says, I was afraid to go higher. And I told my Rebbe, if you'll go with me, then I'll go higher. So he went with him. And that's when he went into the chamber of the Baal Shem Tov. But then he writes that he went higher and higher, and he saw the simcha in every chamber was beyond. He never in his life, this is the Baal Shem Tov saying, that he never yet saw such simcha. He didn't know what it was about. At first he thought maybe the simcha was that he passed away, and now his neshama is joining them, so they were happy that he's joining forces with them. But they told him, no, you're still alive, your neshama is going back down, but he still never found out the reason for the simcha. So I'm giving you an example. We see here that there are times where there's simcha up there, which we don't even know why and what and when, but as a result of that, Hashem shines his light in a very generous way. So I might be sitting down here, and I, for whatever reason, I merit to feel that, and I get excited, and I get inspired, and the Alter Rebbe says, it's amazing, but it's not going to last, because I really didn't do anything that I should be able to absorb it. And if I don't absorb it, it won't last. Yeah.
So whenever like you get a feeling of inspiration or excitement randomly, like without, I don't know, working hard to get that, that is that.
Right. Right. There's something from above that hit me. Why it hit me now is something's going on up there or some other reason, but usually it's something from above. But if I, let's say, I'm getting to in a second, if I, let's say, I'm learning something, I'm doing something to get myself to a certain place, and then I get there, that could be a result of the work that I did. Yeah, Ariel.
I feel like this excitement, even if you are keenly for it, doesn't last always. What does it mean to like make it last?
Make it last. Make it last doesn't mean that the high lasts forever.
Mhm.
But it means that there's this, it could upgrade my spiritual place, and that upgrade lasts forever. In other words, I as a result of this excitement, I rise a little bit spiritually, and that rising could last permanently.
But that's not from the one that's from above.
No, that's when it comes from me. So, but I
what does
guess
the one from above do?
what?
So what does the arousal from above do?
It's just temporary.
Always. It's just temporary.
Generally, it's temporary. One of the things Alter Rebbe is going to say in this mimer is, what can I do if it does happen to make it permanent? Is there anything I can do? And the Alter Rebbe says, yeah, there's advice what I can do. So we'll get there soon. So don't just like say, okay, I'm sorry, this is from above, I don't want to take it. If it comes, grab it, and then we'll see what we can do with it. There's a famous story with the Tzemach Tzedek that the Alter Rebbe once said to him that I wanted to give you vast knowledge of Torah as a gift. What does that mean? It means that the Alter Rebbe would transmit to the Tzemach Tzedek vast knowledge of Torah that he didn't have yet, in a miraculous way. Just to give an example, we find something similar to this. If you remember the story of Yosef, it's not that long ago that Yosef was in Mitzrayim. It was just a few weeks ago. We read about him. And it said that overnight, Yosef knew all 70 languages in one shot. How did that happen in one night? He got a disc. That disc had all 70 languages, and they put that into his head. The disc was called Malach Gabriel. An angel came to him, and overnight, how could you teach somebody 70 languages overnight? It was a spiritual transmission that he gave him the knowledge of all 70 languages. Again, the fact that Hashem made that we have technology today, that it's possible, yet there's a disk that if you put that into your computer, you now have in your computer access to 60, 70, or 80, I don't know, 1,000 svarim of Torah, which is about millions and millions of pages of Torah. And how did you get it in a second? We just put it in there. So basically, here the Alter Rebbe is giving him this gift, and Tzemach Tzedek said he'd rather not take it. Why not? Because he was trained that anything you want to achieve spiritually has to come through your work, through your hard work. And they don't want to take just a spiritual gift. Later, Tzemach Tzedek said he regrets that he didn't take the gift. Why? He could have taken the gift from the Alter Rebbe, and Torah is endless. So then he'll have plenty of room to do more spiritual work and go from that point on. Why didn't he take the gift? But there's a little interesting point to this. The Rebbe once told the story more than once. One time he told the story, and he said it's missing explanation, and he gave a very beautiful, deep, new insight to the story, which hopefully, if I forget, you'll remind me as we get. It's necessary to learn a little bit further to understand that explanation that Rebbe gave. I mean, the question that Rebbe asked was a simple question. Couldn't Tzemach Tzedek think of this before? Why, when he got older, did he think of this? Okay. In a sense, it's like soil. You put a seed into the soil. In order for the seed to take root and then to grow, it has to be absorbed in the soil. If it's hard and doesn't absorb, it's sitting there on top of the soil, but nothing's going to happen. So if the information, if this inspiration comes to me, but I didn't really prepare myself to be able to absorb it, then it's hovering over me, but it doesn't really penetrate. If it doesn't penetrate, there won't be any permanent benefits. So this is the second part. When there's no hard work means by doing that, I'm refining my mind, I'm refining my heart to be a keli, to be a vessel to absorb this kind of light. I got excited because there was something shining from above. This would be able, could fade away. It only shines in opportune times, like I just mentioned, special times. So some of the special times we know already. Like I said, every Shabbat is a special time, every Yom Tov is a special time, and it says that Shabbos Mincha is specifically a special time, but then there are times that we're not aware of, but in Shamayim it's known as a special time. It disappears as if it never happened. Because it only came as a result of this light, and this light only shines when there's a special time. So once the light goes away, the Teila Ha'ava, this light, this love to Hashem that I was feeling, goes away. Again, to just address your question, Ariel, you probably had this in Tanya, that there are certain times where a person experiences something spiritually, and even though they don't feel that for the rest of the day, but there's a certain impression left, and that impression has the power to bring the person to a better spiritual place. Like, for example, one example is what a Beinoni is all about. Generally, a Beinoni is a person that, what's the difference between a Beinoni and a Tzaddik She'eino Gomer? One of the differences, a Beinoni has to crank up that love for Hashem every single day, which means every day in davening, he has to daven in a way to generate that love, and the love is so strong that it prevents him from doing anything wrong, and he's a Beinoni. What about a Tzaddik? By a Tzaddik, it became so natural, he doesn't have to generate. When he davens, he reaches a higher level of love for Hashem. But to reach the level of love for Hashem and the level of fear of Hashem that'll prevent me from violating everything and anything in Torah, the Tzaddik has that naturally already through all the work he did in the past. And the Beinoni has to every day. Okay, so when he does that, that's davening. What happens with the rest of the day? So the answer is, the rest of the day, there's some impression left of what happened during davening, to the extent that this will give him the strength for the rest of the day. So I guess anything that I work on, because it's something which is really deep and penetrates, even if the real high doesn't stay with me all the time, but there's something that will stay with me and will be effective in my avodah. The notion that, what does that mean? This is the quote that's found in Gemara. Rashi brings in a Chumash. Again, when it says Isha and Isha, a man and a woman, Of course, it's always a mashal for Hashem and Bnei Yisrael. Hashem is the husband, and Bnei Yisrael is the wife. And when it talks about giving birth, it's talking about giving birth to the emotions towards Hashem. We know it says in Tanya that emotions, love, and fear of Hashem, these are like the children. And Chochmah and Bina, these are like the parents. So, just like in the physical, it says, Ish Mazriya Tchila, if the seed comes first from the man, Yoledis Nekeva, then the baby that will be born will be a girl. And if it comes first from the woman, then the baby that will be born is a boy. What does it mean spiritually? What's the mashal? The nasham daiton kalis. It says in Gemara that women daiton kalis. What does that mean? It means that a woman apparently can easier change her mind than a man. I think there's actually an expression like that in English, right? How does it go? It's the prerogative of a woman that she could change her mind. So basically, it's what it says in Gemara, Daitan Kalas. What does it mean, Baruchnius? That even though the Nefesh Habahamis gets excited with love for Hashem, what kind of birth would it be? Nekeva, which means it would be female in the sense that it could be easily, later, it could fade away. When is that? If it comes first from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's the one who arouses us. If we are the ones who arouse him, then the baby that's born is Zachar, is male, which means that it's something which is more permanent. By the way, all these things, whenever it says it doesn't mean that every man is this way and every woman is that way. It means this is the general nature of men, this is the general nature of women, and then each individual there can be reasons for change or differences. If the woman is the one that the seed comes from her first, which means that first comes the tata. I did my hard work, and then it comes the Leila. You let the zacha. Then the baby that's born is male. Shudas chazak b'avedes chulu. That it means that his das is something which is more solid. And it's not easy to lose that. It's something which is going to be more permanent. This is references the next few lines in it. The Zeu Asiba, here the Alter Rebbe goes into his personal experience. People came to the Alter Rebbe in Yechidus, like every chassid comes to the Rebbe, and they complained. And who complained? Bali Aved, the people that really worked on themselves. And what did they say? They felt a spirit of purity. This Eirus Lavedis Hashem, they felt an awakening to serve Hashem, Al Kama Shvuos, and they felt it for many weeks, not just a day, not an hour, for weeks. But Achakach, then it's gone. And I guess they were very concerned. What does it mean? And does it mean that all these weeks I was being delusional, thinking that I felt something, it really wasn't real? The Alter Rebbe says, no, it was real. But because this inspiration came from Hashem, therefore, after the light goes away, the Susa Leila goes away, Nishra Amamade, he remains exactly where he was with his original nature. And everything goes back to the way it was before. Like when the wind stops blowing, the piece of paper goes back down on the floor. That's the Alter Rebbe's answer to these people. So before we go to let's just pause for a moment and go to the workbook here. Let's first start with the Hasidic phrases and terms, then we'll go with the questions. Okay. Again, due to lack of time, I wouldn't mind if we have 2 hours of Chassidus every day, but due to the lack of time, we have other things we need to learn. So I'm just going to go straight together with you. The first, Pnei Adam Shebemerkava, what does that mean?
Oh, no.
Where?
In the chariot?
Right.
It'll work.
I should have had another word here, which I'm sorry if you don't mind, you can put it down yourself. And that is write down Adam Ha'elyon. Adam is Aleph Daled Mem. Ha'elyon is Hey, Ayin, Lamed, Yud, Vav, Nun. The supernal Adam. So what is the difference between Pnei Adam Shebemerkava and the supernal Adam? It's not the same?
Isn't it to do with the Nefesh HaBahamis, the Nefesh HaBakis?
So are they two things or is it the same thing? What?
Two things, I guess.
What's the difference?
Mm.
So let's look at that. Let's look at that chart that I showed you. This chart, which is on page 19, and you'll see where they are in two different places. One is in the prophecy. It says there's a chariot. On the chariot there's a throne, and on the throne there's an Adam sitting on the throne. That's Adam Ha'elyon. That's called the supernal Adam. It's a higher level. Then there are faces of 4 animals, which are really angels carrying this chariot. And one of the 4 faces is an Adam. So that's something lower, Pnei Adam. When it says Pnei Adam Shebemerkava, it's one of the 4 faces. It's also on the same level as the lion, the eagle, and the ox. But Adam Ha'elyon is much higher up. So yes, the Nefesh HaLekis comes from Pnei Adam, and the Pnei Adam comes from Adam Ha'elyon. But whenever you learn a Maimer or a Sicha, and it says that this is alluding to Adam Ha'elyon, it's referring to the one all the way on top. Okay? Shmarei Fanim means the waist of those angels, which meaning it's not even the angels themselves, but sort of the lowest level that evolves from the angels. Number 3, 4, and 5. Let's do it together. Number 3 is what? Number 4 is what? Number 5 is what?
5 is face of a lion.
5 is face of a lion. Correct. 4. You have 2 left.
Eagle.
4 is the face of an eagle. Pnei Nesher. So 3, by default, has to be the face of an ox. Okay.
Oh, right.
Sure.
Right.
Okay. Number 6, Merkeves Yecheskel.
That's the
Oh, the
vision.
divine chariot.
Right, the chariot that Yecheskel saw a vision. Number 7, how would you translate the difference between 7 and 8? Iskafia and Ishapcha.
Is
Calming and
Chapter
subduing.
and
Dysclasia.
I'm up to my second cup of water. Let's go.
Iskafia is like refraining,
Like subduing.
And Ishapcha,
You change it.
transform.
right. So Iskafia would be translated as to subdue or to discipline, to refrain, and hold and restrict the Nefesh HaBahamis. And Ishapcha means to transform the Nefesh HaBahamis, that the horse should no longer be a horse. Number 9, Chayes HaKodesh, the holy animals. What's that?
Also,
Holy animals?
Are they the animals that like are sitting next to Hashem?
Which animals?
Like the lion? I don't know.
There's a lion up there.
Yeah. Isn't there? Like the really holy lion?
The holy lion and the holy eagle and the holy ox, these are angels.
Oh.
So why do they have such names as animals?
because they
they
are
give us-
animals down here.
Because they're the source of these animals down here. Remember I told you the lion is the king of all wildlife. So that angel is the source of all wildlife. The eagle is the king of all birds. So that's the source of all the birds in this physical world. And the ox is the king of all domestic and farm animals. So that's the king of all those. And that's the source of all those. So these are angels. That's what we call it. In davening, we also have the word Chayes HaKodesh. Number 10, we mentioned this yesterday, Ein Hadinim Nimtokim. The dinim, which is judgment, can only be sweetened b'sharshan through their source. which means,
Like when you look at the source of something, that's not so bad.
right, or it's actually good or very good. When you want to sweeten, in other words, you want to change something which is gevura, which is judgment. If you get to the source, that's how it becomes elevated, because you reveal the source, and the source is pure and good. Number 11, number 12, number 13, number 14. So 11 and 13 are the same, which is what?
Feminine waters and.
Right. Number 11 means feminine waters, and that means initiation of love that comes from below. Number 12 is masculine waters, which means an initiation of love that comes from above. Hashem shows his love to me. Number 15, Eis Ratzon.
Oh, that's like the auspicious time.
Auspicious time, right. Okay, that's the term. Let's go to the questions. Yes.
If women are light and das, and then why are they the initiators from below, which means it will last forever, and men are the initiators from above, which means it doesn't last forever.
Yeah, we're talking about what would be, not the initiation, we're talking what would be born out of the initiation. What would be the results? So we're saying if the result is not, the result is female, then it means there'll be love for Hashem, but it won't be permanent. Also, I must add another thing. Maybe that's also an answer to your question. Whenever there's a mushal, like in this case, women are a mushal for below, it doesn't mean that every single detail of the mushal is always applied to every single detail of the mushal. Okay, the three questions at the beginning of the Mamar is, that's a little bit hard to remember. So should I go over that, or somebody want to go over? Go ahead.
Why does it start in the third person and then end in second?
Good.
And then it writes that if a man brings a singular, then why is shall you, like that whole phrase
Plural. Good.
Why isn't it written like a man of you who brings sacrifices?
Right. Rather than saying if a man brings a sacrifice of you, should say one of you will bring a sacrifice. So these are the three questions. He didn't answer them yet, but the next chapter is going to answer them. What is the shirish of the Nefesh Elokis? What is the root of the Nefesh Elokis? Oh, so the question is it from Adam ala Kisei, or is it from Pnei Adam Sheba Merkava? We just answered that question. Right. But, and that comes from Pnei Adam, from the Adam ala Kisei.
Oh, everything does.
So Ariel asked the question yesterday, and I see the question coming today again. Everything is like that. It's from here, but it's also from there, and it's from higher and from higher. But basically, that would mean that everything, if you ask what's the source is the essence of Hashem, because he's the source of everything. So the answer is when we say, like for example, you learn Maimarim that say that the source of our neshamas is from Malchus of Atzilus. Malchus. Beautiful. Then you have explanations what's special about Malchus. Then you open Tanya, chapter 2, the source of our neshamas is from Chachma. Isn't it a contradiction? Say, no, it comes from Malchus, but Malchus comes from Chachma. So why are you saying it comes from Malchus? Just say it comes from Chachma. And we have this all the time. So the answer is, so this is, it's worth going into it, even though it's a little bit over the subject, but it's really a key answer to everything you learn in Chassidus and Sichos. That when we say that the source of something, let's say in this case is Malchus, it means that now if you'll analyze and understand what's unique about Malchus, you'll see these unique characteristics also in every neshama. And then Chassidus will talk, Malchus is bittul, Malchus is this, Malchus is that. Then there's a source of the source. Because it's a higher source, therefore not everything is so much recognized and visible and not so clear seen in our neshamas, because this is a source, but it's further away. So I would think of this, let's say, begashmis. You look at a person, you say, I know this person. I knew her grandmother. There's such similarity that they look very similar. Okay, because it's the grandmother. But who was the grandmother's grandmother? Grandma's grandmother, I don't know, someone else. Is it possible that this woman should have certain character traits because which would be similar and be resemble very much the character traits of the grandmother's grandmother? Sure. But the further away you go, the less you'll see that similarity. Not because you don't know those people, just because it's further away. I mean, genes come through from generation to generation, and therefore you see that. But not always do you see it so open. You see it more open with the parents, the grandparents, but the further back you go. So if somebody, for example, today says, I'm a descendant of Rashi. Okay, and what's the connection between you and Rashi? I once learned the Rashi, it's the connection. You don't see that connection. But you know what? If I'm a descendant from Rashi, there probably is something there that I inherited from Rashi. I might not know it. I might not know how to identify it. But if I come from that source, just like we say about Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, we all come from Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So there's something in us that comes from them. So that's what it means when we say the source is Pnei Adam. It means the direct source is Pnei Adam. The source of the source is even higher, but that's less recognizable than the lower source. A sikha from the Friedrich Rebbe, where he's describing someone, and I remember the details. I might be off with the details, but this is what it sounded. This is a general thing. He said, I saw this person, and I can tell that he was like a third generation from the south of Russia. In other words, I can tell that he's from the south of Russia, but not he. He's third generation from someone from the south of Russia. What is the Sherish of Bahamas? From the Shmorei Efanim or from the Chayes of the Merkava?
Shmaya.
Same question. The direct source is the lower level, Shmorei Efanim, but the source of the source is the Chayes and Merkava. Why do we have a description of the Avodah of the Malachim in the brachas before Shema? Why do we focus on the angels?
To conquer the Nefesh Bahamas.
Right, because we are making our Nefesh Bahamas aware that its source is godly. What is the Maila? What is the advantage when a Sus Leila comes first? I didn't talk about that, but maybe you know the answer. In other words, in Chassidus, you'll always learn there's an advantage in one thing over the other, and there's also an advantage in the other over one. There must be an advantage when the light from Hashem comes first. What is the advantage? So you didn't learn about it here, but it's explained in other places, even later in this Maimer. And it says as follows: when an awakening comes from above, it's usually more powerful. There's more force to it than if it comes as a result of my working on myself. Like, for example, if a person has a miracle, he was in a building, and chas v'shalom, a bomb fell, and everything fell apart, and all around him everything fell apart, and he's standing there, and nothing happened to him, and he was totally untouched. This is something very powerful that could shake up a person and make really huge changes in life. When a Susad Leila comes from above, it's usually very powerful. If the awakening and the arousal and the excitement comes as a result of contemplating and thinking, it's more real, it's more pneumius, but it's not as powerful. It doesn't have so much drama to it. So basically, there's an advantage in both. The advantage in Susad Leila coming first is that what comes from above is very forceful, very powerful. And the advantage in when it comes from below is that it's more internalized. It's less powerful, but it's deeper. What does Rus Leila only shine for a short period of time?
Because you're not really able to receive the light. Like you're not.
No, there's a different question. Why does it only shine for a short period of time? Why doesn't the source of the Leila shine all the time?
Like auspicious times.
Right, because it's only connected to auspicious times. Generally speaking, Hashem's light is hidden, And only when there's something unusual going on, does Hashem shine light in more open way. And what would you say is the main point of this chapter? I would write down the main point of the chapter is the difference, the two kinds of Avodah, whether the source of Leila comes first or the source of Latata comes first. Okay, we're ready for chapter 2, but the clock says he's not ready. Okay, we should be here soon.